Hello, everybody. It is the Craic. It is Friday. Crackheads, you beautiful, beautiful people. How are you all doing? Isn't it a lovely day? Well, I don't really know where you are or how nice it is, but I can tell you in Dublin, it's a bit overcast, but it's just right. Not too warm, not too cold. Right there in the middle. Can't complain about that. Look, we have things to talk about today. One story involves Big Ankalaev, Alex Pereira, and Google Translate, all combining for a brilliant exchange. We're going to go through that meticulously. Hey, guess what? Oleksandr Usyk wants to fight in MMA. Get excited, guys. It's the one we've been waiting for. He wants to fight Jake Paul in MMA. Woo! I mean, cannot wait to pick Chuck and Ben's brain about that one. What a fight. Is it on the same level as Dylan Dennis and Eddie Hall? You know, there's a lot to get through there. Perth, they're having a UFC event this week. Remember, like 2 years ago, it was Volkanovski v Islam Makhachev, and everyone was like, "Well, this is amazing. Look at the Australian market. Isn't this fantastic?" Well, yesterday, a lot of reports coming out of Australia suggesting not a lot of people buying tickets for UFC Perth. We'll talk about that card. Chuck Mindenhall has talked to Dominick Reyes, and I'll be trying to get some advice from the guys, sports-going regulars, as to how to behave at my first NFL game, because I'm going to the Steelers and Vikings game on Sunday in Craic, which is a real place, Ben, folks, and I'm very excited to see it. Let's bring in the lads, my lovely friends, Ben Fowlkes, Chuck Mindenhall. Look at those beautiful faces. Look at these beautiful, beautiful boys. Ben, let's start with you. How are you, sir? Looking fantastic as always.
Thank you. I like that you're going with like famous person trying to fit in a crowd and blend in here vibe, just like the plain black hat that like the dude would wear on Succession when he didn't want to be recognized. That's really fun. I'm very excited. This is the first time hearing that you're going to the NFL game. I'm very excited for you to find out that NFL is one of the rare sports that is much, much better viewed on TV than
Well,
in
that's
person.
great.
Maybe it won't be so in Ireland, but I've been to a few NFL games, and the thing I came away with was, wow, this would be better if I were at home watching on TV. You know, college games give you a different experience. They're a lot of fun to go to. The NFL games, you're just kind of like, huh, I am still basically watching TV though, as I'm following this game.
Well, that'll get me excited, Chuck, huh? Can you give me any kind of counterpoint to what
No,
Ben
he's
just said?
right, Pete. I was just at a game out in Indianapolis a couple weeks ago, and you spend most of your time just kind of staring at nothing, like nothing's going on, because there are a lot of you realize there's a lot of TV timeouts, and it's a hell of a lot longer of a trek to the bathroom from wherever you're sitting than it is from your couch to your bathroom in your house. So you'll catch up on it, but I would say that I wouldn't go so far as to say that it's not worth it. I think it'll be fun for you. It'll be novel and all that stuff, but you'll get one experience of it and be like, yeah, I'm pretty good, I think.
Yeah. Well, I do have some faith in the Irish people and their ability to turn sort of any
Yeah.
live event like that into a good time. I'm sure you guys will find a way to have a really great time
Not
with
to
it.
mention, wait, you went to a college game and didn't you say they were like something was wrong with their machines and so they were handing out free beer? I mean, this is like if you get
It
something
was
like that again.
it was like the last days of the Roman Empire, and that I can't remember leaving. Can't remember who was
Oh my
playing in the
Lord.
game. Remember falling through a lot of people at one point. Yeah, it was a great day. We were building those big snakes with
Oh yeah.
yeah, got a lot of
Classic
them.
move.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can
I'll tell
remember
you,
being in the
my
queue for that game, and suddenly like the queue stopped like for the bar, and there's like 8 guys inside waiting for me to bring the beer, and suddenly like no one's moving, and next of all whispers start coming down. The card machines are broken, and I was like,
Oh
but it's a
my God.
cashless stadium, and they're like, yeah, they have to give us free beer, and I was like, what?
they have
So
to.
They
It's in
have
the
to.
Constitution. They have to do
Yes.
it.
I text all my friends. They just left their seats. Everyone queuing up.
Wow.
Everyone's like, "Give me 8 beers."
That sounds
It's
crazy.
for my
man.
friends. It
I'll
was
tell you
biblical.
The first NFL game I ever went to, my dad took me to see the Dallas Cowboys visiting the Los Angeles Rams. The first time the Rams were in Los Angeles when they played at Anaheim Stadium, like on the baseball field, where you got
the infield dirt,
$1 million professional football players running across the infield dirt and tearing out their ACLs and whatnot. And I was probably like 10 years old or something. And for me, the highlight was that at halftime, they had dogs catching frisbees, and these dogs were good. They weren't just like backyard dogs. They were like a traveling show of dogs that would catch frisbees. And especially on the football field, you can see we're throwing those frisbees 70, 80 yards in the air. The dogs are sprinting, catching them. And I understand it now because I could see the look on my dad's face as we went home from the football game, walked in the front door and my mom's like, how was it? And I was like, these dogs were catching these. And he was just like, probably could have found a cheaper way to give you that entertainment experience without going to an NFL game.
Oh,
now you have me all like razzed up to see these halftime dogs catching frisbees, and if they're not there, I'm gonna be fucking furious. I'll tell you that much.
I don't think they do that anymore.
I have some things I want to share about this. We'll get to that later on because, of course, this is an MMA show, and we've got a big fight happening next week. It is Big Onk. That's what we're calling him now, and it's no longer Magomed Ankalaev. It is now Magomed Ankalaev, based on his X profile. He's fighting a guy who lives in the same town as Chuck. His name is Alex Pereira. And basically, on Air Jordan, let's just have it. Let's rip this thing because there are an assortment of clips to get through here to garnish our beautiful crackheads with some information. Oh, look at this. Here's Ankalaev. It's a Pereira. And as Chuck pointed out earlier, he's in his I'm talking to a camera in a car situation. Here it is.
Standard.
He's basically saying here that Ankalaev hid from him in the PI. Someone from my team was still inside, and he heard the girl from the PI side to Ankalaev. He can come now. He's already left. Like, damn. He was hiding. They hid the guy in a little room, man. This guy thinks I'm gonna run into him and start fighting. Did I look stupid, bro? Do I look stupid, bro? Here's Ankalaev. Magomed Ankalaev says, this clown who I'm fighting said I'm hiding from him. I've given him a rematch and he should be very grateful. I whooped him for 5 rounds. I did everything I wanted to him during that fight. Let's focus on fighting and not trash talking. Then he says, this guy has been knocked down 3 times in his career. I've never been knocked down. This time I'll give his 4th knockdown. End of story. He said then. Yeah,
I'm glad you're emoting for him because he would not be able to.
Because they weren't going to do it. No. Neither one of them was going to do it. So you had to step in there. I really like that Alex Pereira began his story with funny thing happened. Had to be, like classic sort of like comedian setup sort of thing. Also, this is the first time hearing that we've changed the X profile so that it's now Magomed Big Ank Ankalaev. So basically, though, you're kind of throwing like 2 name changes at us at the same time. You gotta do those one at a time, man. That's too much. That's too much. Also, does a fighter lose a little something when he takes the Magomed out of his name? Because a Magomed, that goes a long way in this sport. People have gotten signed contracts on little more than just having a Magomed or 2 in their name.
I don't know. Magomed, though, is a pretty strong track record.
That's true. That's true.
Maybe not Magomed's strength, but it's pretty good.
Chuck, what do you think of this new version of Powhatan who speaks a lot? It's interesting.
I don't see. I like it, but what was the whole Easter Island thing that we had going on, where it was just the stone face and no emotion whatsoever. I think the first couple times I wrote about him, that was the fun part, right? Like, because you're just describing this guy who didn't have emotion. Like, he's doing this very high pressured gig. He's handling himself like a savage in every time we'd seen him, and yet you couldn't really get him to emote or to do anything like that. It was fun to read into that. Now I feel, and then, I was okay with the kind of like understanding he had a sense of humor, but something's not translating anymore. I think part of it is he usually doesn't have to talk any trash. This feels a little weird, even though this feels like the coldest of campfires when it comes to trash talking in my mind. It doesn't really feel like much is happening here, but I still kind of just like mysterious fighters. I've said this about fighters in general and how they kind of cough up all their charms on social media and then they do all these different things. I prefer them to keep a little bit You know what I mean? As a writer, as a journalist, that you prefer them to keep a little bit back so that you can still peel back layers as their career rolls on, rather than giving up too much.
Do you think though, like, is what we're doing here that this fight doesn't really have a ton of sizzle to it just on its surface, and so everybody feels the need to add a little something extra? Because I mean, it should, right? Because we were very, very excited about Alex Pereira, and he lost this fight, which nobody was exactly hair on fire for the matchup to begin with.
Right.
He loses the fight. We decide we're going to do a rematch basically because we don't have anything better to do, and you don't exactly feel a ton of enthusiasm and energy for the rematch. And so do people they feel the need to step up here and try to deliver a little something. And also maybe like that we're seeing one way you get under Alex Pereira's skin a little more is just he was having such a great run there, then he lost one and he kind of couldn't stand it. And so now he becomes obsessed with getting back in there and doing it again. I don't know. It still feels like it's like anytime you have to do your trash talking across language barriers and the help of modern translation technology, you can't help but lose a little something.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, let's take a look at that video of the Google Translate episode if we have that. That's right. Am I right saying this on air, Jordan? We have the Google Translate. Oh, here we go. Yeah. The same thing you just keep throwing, but we're fighting in October.
Yeah.
That's what Ankalaev's saying. Let's settle it in the octagon, says Ankalaev. Why waste time with empty talk, says Ankalaev. Pereira, I never said anything. I never said anything. They're the ones who are always talking, and when he shows up in front of me, he's a coward. That's what he said. Here comes Mohammed Big Ankalaev. He said, had my last hard training today, and I'm good to go. Met my opponent today. I confronted him for lying about me, I confronted him for lying about seeing me in the PI the other day, to which he said, "Oh no, it was one girl who told me she saw you, but I didn't see you myself. I will turn off his electricity next."
His electricity.
Yeah.
Is that something lost in translation there? He's trying to say shut out the lights?
Oh, just for all the fans out there.
Oh my God.
For the last 2 months, I make my own tweets.
Might make my own poo poo.
Google Translate is the best. Can I just say? This one episode has made him more popular than how many years of tweets from Ali curating his fucking tweets. Oh my God.
Also, there's something a little funny of being like, don't worry, like especially when you were like, for the last 2 months, I have been writing my own tweets.
Yeah.
Like, good, I guess. But then afterward being like, Chat GPT has been helping me. So it's like, well, okay, so you're kind of writing your own tweets. I get it. You know, we're translating, we're trying to get it across there. It does though. I remember hearing Denzel Washington talk once about why he didn't do social media, and he was like, "Look, if people see you every day of the week, they're not going to pay to see you in the matinee on Saturday." And kind of
that's all I'm saying.
Your point there, Chuck. And once I did an interview with George St. Pierre, and we were talking about something completely different, and I might have mentioned something about like something that had showed up on one of his social media. And he really seized on that, and he kept making a point to tell me about how he himself had never authored a single tweet. And he kept repeating, not one tweet. I write not one tweet. And he was basically saying like, hey, don't ask me about anything you see on there. I don't even know what's on there.
Wow.
But it was one of those kind of calls where it's like, the UFC sets it up, they're listening in, here are the calls going, all that kind of stuff. He kept talking about the social media stuff, even though we were trying to talk about something completely different. And then afterwards, whoever was listening in on the UFC side must have told their boss, like, I don't know what they were talking about, something about social media. And George seemed pretty fired up. And so they reached out to me and they're like, I thought you guys were going to talk about this. What happened there? And I was like, brother, I wish I knew. I wish I could tell you what happened there. I didn't want to talk about that. But he did get very animated about it. But it was also just like, George has it right. That the way to interact with Twitter is, if you have to have a presence on there or whatever to promote some sponsorships to put some money in your pocket, fine. But man, you should not be messing with it at all. I think we got to see the example of going back and forth between these two guys as to why.
Don't waste heat is what you told us last week, Ben. It's like, don't waste the heat. I mean, they just went through this and generated this. Don't you think? I feel like some of this, we see this kind of thing. And like you said, Ben, like, I don't think there was this huge clamoring thing to see this. Ankalaev kind of slid in there through the meritocracy, right? Like you couldn't deny him, but everybody was speculating that Pereira should be fighting this guy, going up to heavyweight, whatever it is. But then you get the fight, and it's every bit the kind of like to what his personality is. That's what this fight was. It was Ankalaev is just, there wasn't much to it. It felt very much like Pereira wasn't letting go. He's very kind of holstered through most of this fight. You're waiting for him to come to life. It never really happens. You're waiting for takedowns maybe too. They don't really happen. So it just kind of plays out in a very dull way. And sometimes when that happens, even though the guy that the company probably wants to win, obviously for marketability and for bigger fights, and the fans want to win because it was like a party while Pereira's winning, loses, you're kind of like worried that you're going to get the same thing, right? Like it's just going to be this anticlimactic now 0-2 hole that he's dealing with. And I feel like that's part of what's going on with this fight too.
Yeah, it's really not captured the imagination, to be fair. And look, you'd think guys who work for the UFC would be like more inclined to spin this and be like, this is actually a huge fight. Don't know if Din Thomas got the message, because Din's been really harping on about a certain trade concerning one of these men for quite some time, and it's really took on a life of its own. I believe we have the quotes here on air, Jordan. Is that correct? Here it is. Concerning Magomed Mohammed Big Onk Ankalaev, trading places with the face of PFL, Dakota Dejeva. I've been saying this for 2 years that they needed to make that trade, says Din Thomas. When Ankalaev was running around trying to get fights, begging for fights, I said, trade his ass to the PFL. They conveniently brought it out now when he's a champion. Yeah. Not only am I doubling down, I'm tripling down. I am still saying that it would be a better trade. She would be the biggest star in the UFC. Interesting, lads, because I heard Ariel Helwani's the one that's getting all the shit for saying this star problem. There's Din Thomas, good friend of Dana White, saying, in fact, they do have a star problem. And the way we're going to solve this star problem is get rid of Ankalaev, the light heavyweight champion, and replace him with Dakota Dejeva. Not great the week before his title defense against Alex Pereira, would you say, Chuck?
I think it's funny that the PFL in this scenario is kind of like the Siberia, which is almost like sending Ankalaev home in a weird, towards his home anyway. I tweeted this out. I'm like, how drunk do you think the PFL would have to be to do this? Like, it's one of those things you're like, you're like, what would be the
ask for more?
Here?
They should ask for a draft pick or some cash considerations.
Yeah,
something
future
else.
Considerations.
It should not be a 1-for-1 trade.
But I love that it's just like, hey man, we got this extremely boring champion, but he's a champion, and let's just ship him over here and then pick up your best star, the one that we've been saying, in some form was probably the most coveted, piece that you could bring over. If you could one free agent, or if she became a free agent, that would be the biggest piece that would be out there for the UFC to go after and bring onto the roster. It's ridiculous, but I do think it's funny because it always shows insight into how people think. And I'm like, can you imagine if the world really ran like this? And when we had the Ben Askren and Demetrius Johnson, you look at something like that and you're like, well, it made complete sense from both perspectives, right? Like you had two kind of disgruntled guys. They were kind of both marketable in their own way. Like you shift them and, okay, we can use this guy in these way and we can use this guy over here. What is Ankalaev going to do for the PFL? I mean, it's just, I love kind of seeing this because they're like, Ankalaev would just fade into the backdrop behind like 50 other names at the PFL, wouldn't he? And we don't even know like those people's name, but that's how Ankalaev would be treated over there.
Do you think maybe like the way to sell it to PFL would be like you go to an NFL team and you're like, look, I know you don't want to trade this guy, but he got 1 year left on the contract and he doesn't want to re-sign when it's up. When it comes time to free agency,
be a good agent. Yeah.
Trade him now and at least get something for him.
What would be the equivalent? Like what would be an NFL equivalent to this? Like I was, you see something like this, like they'd be like, okay, so you'd be having to look into somebody's franchise kind of player, right? And maybe a very young franchise player who's just coming into their own and, just about to start winning Super Bowls. And then they're trying to ship off like what, a guard or a center, a Pro Bowl center.
It's basically like, hey, we have an amazing left tackle. Nobody other than like the hardcore football heads knows that, but they know it. And like, you need a tackle. Your quarterback is out there getting shelled right now. He's doing no good for you. You need a solid left tackle to protect the blind side. We'll give you this guy. Give us Shedeur Sanders. Give us your
Christian McCaffrey from the
No, not even like an established. Give us somebody
Josh Allen
who's new. They're starting to come along. Maybe they're going to turn into a big star. We can see the potential. They're a shiny new toy. We want that. We can do something with that. You need help. Is what you need. We can give you that established, dependable, rock solid help in this way. You give us something that is kind of a lottery ticket that might pay off big or might kind of flame out once it gets over here against UFC competition. Who knows? Like, that's kind of the would be the selling point. I do like to imagine, though, for one thing, I appreciate Dean Thomas will tell you what he thinks. And that's God love him for that, because the UFC does not have among its like crew of talking heads so many of them, even if they really were tell you what they think kind of guys before they got those jobs. They're so grateful to have those desk jobs, those talking head jobs. They don't ever want to jeopardize it. They play it extremely safe, which means playing it extremely boring. Dean Thomas, you can call him up any day. Call up Dean Thomas. He is going to tell you, and I love that about him, and I respect it. And so, for him to come out here now and just say it, it's just kind of like, he's not lying. He's not making anything
striking
up.
while the iron's hot.
He
it's
genuinely
like
believes this.
Yeah,
and I do like to imagine the PFL executives, though, kind of like looking up from like a ham sandwich, being like, "What?"
From the newspapers.
There were no trade talks going on. What are you saying?
Not this again. Is it all right? I'm asking you guys because I sometimes think about this. Well, I think about it an awful lot. Is being good at the sport of MMA less important than ever?
Yes.
Right now.
Yes.
It is, isn't it? And that's a weird situation to be in, right? Like, it in terms of everything, like, even like I've talked about this before on the show, even in terms of guys who are trying to get to the UFC, there used to be a fantastic, I think one of the most rewarding things about the sport used to be like chasing down, following these careers, being like, this guy is going to be fucking class. And we've seen it happen. Like, guys like McGregor, obviously back in the day, Aspinall, guys like this come in and they're huge. Like Paddy Pimblett, massive guy on the UK scene, comes in and it's massive. Right now it feels like even in the feeder leagues, it's all about what manager you're with. Can you keep your record pretty and get signed? Like, there's very rarely like significant fights happening to build guys into the UFC now. And then, of course, in the sport here, like we're laughing about Din Thomas saying this, but I think we all agree with him. Like, Ankalaev is the best fighter in the world at his weight category. We're like, trade immediately. Like, that is not the business we're in anymore. Is it kind of depressing? I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. I'm just permanently confused by the state of flux that the sport seems to be in right now.
I mean, I used to think that it was, you had guys like John Fitch, right? Like we always kind of used his name almost like, oh, you got Fitch, because he got pushed out of like any big fight because he was going to bore you type thing. We've had these types, but we've always had like a hardcore blowback that would come in and be like, hey, man, these guys, the meritocracy, this guy belongs here and all this. You'd have that kind of defense. That defense has all but gone. I don't know if it's just those people just left MMA, but there used to be these really big arguments for the guys who are just going to wrestle or they're just going to, grind to the scorecards. I don't really see that as much, man. I just see kind of, maybe it's just that the vocal majority on social media and things like that just is very disgruntled, because like when you get a fight, generally speaking, especially with a guy like Ankalaev, who doesn't kill you with charisma either outside of it, like, he goes in there and does his work and people just pan it, like they'll just pan that performance. And we've seen this a lot. And so it just feels like it's more universally like, it's got to be a package deal. You got to be compelling more than just in your record. And I think that people these days kind of look to you to like what is he generating? What is that? Including media, because they love just the click stuff, to put stuff on their site, and that's how they gauge your popularity. It's just a different world, man. I think that the way that it operates now, man, you got to kind of have like you got to have two components going at least, right? Like you got to be compelling both in and out of the cage. And I think a guy like Bud Crawford, for instance, he's put together such a long career, but without that big Errol Spence fight kind of launching him into the next thing to the next thing, all the way to Canelo. It's really the magnitude of the events that we see his genius. It's not like he was blowing you away, just from like getting on a microphone or from tweeting or stuff like that. So there's still some exceptions, but I feel like more now than ever, you better have more, multifacets to how you bring your star power, right?
Make me feel better about this, Ben. Come on, say something.
I think to some extent it has always been this way. It's an attention economy, and the fight sports particularly have always been very individual driven, personality driven, and we've seen it. You can go back and read fight coverage from the London bare knuckle days where, a popular champion will retire or lose or get old or something, and then there's kind of a lull. The sport just becomes not quite as popular, not quite as exciting to people because they're looking for the next big name to come out. And I think we've seen that happen in ebbs and flows throughout MMA. You talk about John Fitch. I remember when Ben Askren was that guy, and he was fighting in Bellator. He was undefeated, and yet there was just like no interest from the UFC in potentially signing him and putting him up there to find out if he might be the best welterweight in the world. And so that's when I think you could really see, hey, you could be the very best in the world at this, and it could not matter. It could not translate to the fame and the riches or even the opportunity to prove that you are the best in the world. And when they made that trade, quote unquote trade, where it was just like, okay, we'll release our guy, you release your guy, and then we'll both make our separate deals with them for Demetrius Johnson, it was interesting to have those conversations afterwards about who got the better deal of that trade, because one definitely got the better fighter. Demetrius Johnson was all around a much better fighter than Ben Askren was, a much more complete fighter, a complete package as a fighter. Even that, aging version of him that they got was still just a better for his weight class fighter than Ben Askren was for his at that point. And yet the UFC managed to sort of parlay Ben Askren, not through success, not through victory, but they had him go out there. He had that fight with Robbie Lawler where it was controversial, and then he fights Jorge Masvidal where they got this big beef and the crazy flying knee across the cage. Jorge Masvidal rocketed to a new level of stardom. So it was like the Ben Askren trade, did it benefit the UFC more? One just got a good fighter. He produced some good highlights over there, did some good stuff. The UFC got something where it sort of knocked down a couple dominoes and led, at least briefly, to a star that you could monetize, even if it was a different one than the one you traded for. And it's weird to sort of look at that and step back and be like, okay, I guess you did get the better deal, even though you didn't get the better fighter. That kind of tells you something about this business.
Yeah, you're right. And Askren stimulated everything around him. I remember him showing up to that Masvidal v. Till fight in London, and he was just a guest fighter showing up in his flip-flops.
Oh, yeah.
And
I remember
classic wrestler move. Yeah.
It was just so, he looked like he stumbled into the wrong place, looked like, he got lost, and he's there. And Till and Masvidal are furious with him. Like, him being just matter of fact, and they're like, I'm not talking about Ben Askren. I'm not talking about Ben Askren. And you're like, this is perfect. It's all happening. And as you said, it leads to that moment. Absolutely fantastic. Listen, Ben Askren once fought a man called Jake Paul, and we have something to talk about regarding that man. But unfortunately, because we're so big time, we need to let the people roll the ads so Ben can buy another Bentley, Chuck can buy another Manhattan penthouse. Volkswagen, whatever you want. We will be back in 2 minutes. That's right, to talk about Usyk v. Jake Paul in MMA.
Back in your life, finally.
We have a lot to talk about. I didn't care about a big fight or money. I cared about the heavyweight title. That's all I've ever been bothered about.
Join us for the entire first round live on Yahoo Sports.
This is the biggest shock of the draft.
Super Bowl 59 on Radio Row with Jaden Daniels.
Put me on the spot like that.
Here with first-time Olympian Stephen Curry. You and LeBron's relationship has had to evolve.
And see blood on the other side, but still have the utmost respect for who you're playing against.
You know, alerts on your phone. Oh, KD's thinking about leaving. Like, where is this coming from?
Coach Prime, Deion Sanders. They don't put a gold jacket on your back and you don't know what you're doing.
The head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, Jim Harbaugh.
It's like being around greatness.
How does that feel when you hear that? Shedeur Sanders, future NFL
quarterback.
You're
the first one I ever hear say that. Like, that's wild. But I'm thankful.
And they're going to be here for a long time.
Now to a fun part of today's program.
Like, I literally went to college with Chris Paul. Like, he's still in the NBA.
he could not hit another home run all year. It'd be a great season.
Yes, correct.
I got to make an admission first, Pereira.
Oh, gosh.
I grew up a Boston Red Sox fan.
I knew that.
I used to hate you.
I've gotten to a point where I can smell you guys.
And I think winning with the Buccaneers put him at a completely different level. He has the greatest resume of any quarterback in football history.
They have a chance to get to the Eastern Conference Finals and win it. The realist in me says that ain't happening at all.
I don't want to treat you like a regular journalist because I feel like me and you have a good relationship.
I would put Travis Hunter in that same category as those two players. The difference between he and Rome Odunze, Travis Hunter is just a special athlete.
I actually think this is a smart decision by them. This is what we're going to bring in. This is who we are. This is the style that we're doing.
And it was a long, beautiful conversation.
What a fun interview, Nate.
Thanks, Coach. Are you not like all talked out after talking to people for so long?
This is my life.
Okay.
I could do this for 8 hours.
Got it.
Wow.
Welcome back to the Craic, everybody. I hope you enjoyed those ads. I know I did. As I was saying, Jake Paul and Usyk talking a bit of shit. On air, Jordan. Let's get this rolling. Let's see how this bad boy played out with the
I
whatever.
just finished writing my Jake Paul 2030 5-year plan. Signed and delivered. Become world champ. Become billionaire, have 3 kids and get married to Utah, beat Usyk, win an Oscar, fight on the moon, and start a presidential campaign.
I'm
Here
glad
we
we
are.
cut him off.
just on our Jordan was just having enough there. Here's Usyk. Good plan at Jake Paul, but I'm not here for 5th place. Only first. Soon I'll close the book on boxing, and after that, I'll be waiting for you in the cage. Let's see if you've got the balls or just a hunger for hype. Lads, it's happening. Chuck, I know you've been dying for it.
Yeah.
Usyk v. Paul in MMA. Come on!
Yeah, that's going to be big, man. It's
Wait,
a little
hold on.
bit like go ahead, Ben. What are you going to say?
Jake Paul's 28 years old.
Yes.
His 5-year plan includes launching a presidential campaign. He won't
can't.
be old enough.
It's unrealistic.
To be president of the United States.
You got to be 40, right?
You got to be 35.
35, okay.
I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's not that.
I like
kind of
that.
show,
I like that. That's where you like took your stand.
Fighting on the moon just
The moon's
sails
fine.
off.
I mean, we could get that done with Elon
Man,
involved.
if you're Jake Paul and they offer you a chance to go fight on the moon, you better be damn sure they are also offering you a ride back, because that could
this
go
might
wrong.
be. I mean, we could just leave him there. But it's kind of like when you get something like this, where it's like guys who are famous for one thing or maybe a couple things, but then all of a sudden they're like, hey, let's do this other thing. It's almost like what was it? The ABC's like Battle of the Network Stars back in the day or something. It was like, oh, look, we got famous people who are now going to compete in bowling or whatever, or skeet shooting. Like it's really weird to me. And I know that it would be more compelling because it is actually a fight, right? Like it is actually a fight. There would be a part, and I know that this would be a big part of the public's mind, the fight game's mind, to be like, how does this play out? This is going to be very strange because we know they both like to throw hands. What does it look like if they get into clinches? What does it look like if they go to the ground? Is this going to be like sloppy and weird and crazy, or is it going to be like fun? Like, is there going to be something that is compelling? It's crazy that I feel like we plug in Jake Paul to all these scenarios, and he's been the guy who like keeps diverting any kind of like whatever the essential vibe is, whatever the essential flow of the fight game is, he keeps diverting it into some other direction. And honestly, we were talking about this before. Like, if when will it be like when would you really be into a Jake Paul? Well, it would have to be one of those ones where he's finally meeting the guy who can solve him, like guy his size, who's an actual boxer. Like, this becomes the thing. I think that this would be more compelling in the end than fighting guys like, Tank Davis in an exhibition or boxing, or, taking on guys who are former MMA guys in the ring. I think I'd be more compelled to see this in the end. Like, do you agree with that? Like, I think that there would be something to this in terms of like that would feed a curiosity that might actually pay off. Because I feel like when I walk away from Jake Paul's fights, generally speaking, I need a shower afterwards.
I mean, every single time you're like, he got me again. I can't believe he did it.
It is 100%.
We have some quotes here from Nikisa. He gave to Sky Sports. They were on this immediately. Sky Sports, big outlet, kind of like the ESPN of the UK. I think we have them. Do we on our Jordan? No, potentially. Oh, here we go. Jake is crazy enough to do it for sure. I think eventually it's something that will happen. Paul v. Usyk and MMA. That's going to be a cross-cultural moment that the world will pay attention to. Okay. He also said that he had been in touch with Usyk's people and they like it. So Ben, I suppose taking you back to the question that Chuck just asked you, is this better than other Jake Paul fights? Like, is there a bit more on the line here? Is it getting the juices flowing over there in Missoula, Montana?
Well, I think one of the things you got to start with is asking yourself, okay, so Jake Paul's a boxer, Oleksandr Usyk is a boxer. Why are they going to fight in a different combat sport and not boxing? And we all know the answer to that, and it's because Usyk would kill him. Usyk would knock his head clean off his shoulders, and
he's too afraid. One or the other.
It would go sailing off into the night, and that would be the end of Jake Paul. And so instead we're going, all right, we're doing MMA, which neither one of them does, although there is more of a reason to think that maybe Jake Paul, who at least has some wrestling experience, would have something there that would help even the odds for him a little bit against somebody like Usyk, even though, as I'll remind everybody, each round starts standing. So that's basically the unstated part of this that we're going with is obviously he couldn't beat him in a boxing match, but MMA, we don't know what either one of them would look like in MMA. So maybe I also wonder, how much money do you have to pay Usyk to even get him out of bed?
Great point.
And into a cage for an MMA fight? And is that realistic for this? I don't know. It does seem like we're all out of talking points at the moment, so let's go ahead and throw this kind of stuff out there. You know, especially in the context of listening to Jake Paul's 5-year plan, which is a mix of entirely reasonable things like, you know, have kids, start a family, you know, like that stuff that like, yeah, I absolutely believe you could do that. And then become a billionaire, fight on the moon, launch a presidential campaign where you're just like, okay, so we're just saying stuff at that point, right? Like we're just trying to be like, what's big enough and crazy enough that it'll draw some headlines, and then this feels like a part of that. It feels like that sentiment you mentioned, PC, where you come away going, he got us again. The fact that we're sitting here talking about it makes me go, he got us again.
I actually wrote a similar list on my first day of kindergarten back in the day. Things I want to do before I die: fight on the moon, marry supermodel, 3 kids, and of course,
pretty ambitious for a kindergartner.
Yeah, I know. Good. I had my ducks in a row. Is it, Chuck? Like, we see a lot of fucking wild shit. Like, let's be honest. Like, this is it's the wildest fuck. Like, do you remember when the UFC like was getting the Reebok deal and, you know, USADA came in and all that stuff? You were kind of like, oh, well, we're never going to see those days of yore back in Pride anymore. Gary Goodridge beating like a 5'2" guy, 3 of them at the same time, whatever. No, we were very wrong because it's happening all around us all the time. And I guess my question is, how does this compare to something like, is it the same as Dennis and Eddie Hall? Like a freak show? Is this a freak show? Usyk and Jake Paul in MMA?
I don't think so. I mean, not in the same sense exactly, because Usyk, I mean, it's not like he's Butterbean or something. You know, it's like a guy who, like, where you're just like, he's just a guy who almost is a novelty, but a very good novelty at what he does, but like he's still kind of a novelty. Jake Paul feels more like the novelty aspect, and I guess we drag that into the scenario. But in these days of Netflix, right, like it kind of just streaming to 40 million people, it's just kind of I this is the easiest way to do it, right? Like, you can, if you get these kinds of guys together and it can captivate the imagination. I mean, nobody really wanted, if you think about it from any kind of reasonable standpoint, you didn't, seeing a 57-year-old boxer like Mike Tyson, even though it is Mike Tyson, feels like a very bad idea, you know. And I know we talked about it, but you saw that a record number of people tune in to watch this type of thing. It's more viable than that, though, you know. Like, this doesn't have any, like, there's no wincing in something like this. If anything, you still wonder if Usyk's going to knock his head off, like Ben was saying, because I think that's So that thing being in play by itself becomes compelling. And we've pointed this out before. It's the easiest way to look at it. Like the idea that Jake Paul could get his head knocked off is actually compelling, and I think that people like the escalation of his boldness in one way, the audacity, how long can he do this? And some people get really pissed off at it. But in the end, you put those two guys in a cage and they fight that way. I mean, it would draw big numbers. And like when we're talking about like money, obviously the money would probably be there because of that, But I don't know, man. It's like we're so far off the rails from those days when we were like pure-minded and defending the integrities of MMA and stuff that it feels like if you don't kind of look at these things from a certain standpoint now, you kind of get left behind. Like, because that's just, there is so much of this going on nowadays.
Yeah, it's. Do you think, Ben? Chuck mentioned Netflix, and that feels like a rightful place. Will the PFL be a bit upset here? We signed that deal with Jake Paul all those years ago, and we said he was going to fight in MMA. Surely this is our moment. This is PFL's moment. Who are these Netflix guys? But of course, they won't get this fight, right? If it was,
PFL is sitting around here with a couple of these contracts, right? We're at this point where you got really big names that you signed, but also that it doesn't look like there's any real on the horizon future realistic fight that you have for them. Francis Ngannou is another one at this point.
Yeah.
And I don't know. That's not a great sign for the PFL, especially kind of makes you realize, like, hey, you can go out here and you can sign these guys all you want, and it can look on paper to you like, here's a guy who will bring a lot of attention, new viewers, people we haven't had that'll come in the door because they're following this guy. But if you don't also have somebody for that guy to fight, that contract isn't necessarily worth a whole lot to you. And I think that's kind of what you're seeing here with Jake Paul, especially if you're sitting around going, I want to fight on the damn moon. You're probably not also being like, and I want to show up to PFL one of these days. Like, those things just kind of don't go together.
Yeah. It's interesting that this is happening while the promotion for the Tank fight is on. That fight just is not connecting. Like it is. I saw some clips of the press conference. It was
very
like
strange.
It was like pulling teeth. I
feel like we've got some version of this, don't you guys? Like we were talking like a couple weeks ago. It was like Ilya Topuria. It's whoever comes into orbit at that moment. Like all of a sudden that guy, there's somebody barking at him, he's barking at another guy. But you had Ilya Topuria, going at the like with Bud Crawford and stuff like that, and then. It just seems like no matter what now, everybody wants to dip their toe. It's almost like it's preempting like the FOMO or something, where you're like, if there's going to be money in boxing, I want to be in boxing. If there's going to be money in the, crossover fights, I want to do that, and it just feels like this is everybody. Like every champion's kind of looking sideways at that sort of thing now.
Yeah, it's weird. Speaking of barkers, there's going to be a lot of ticket barkers outside the arena in Perth this weekend. Based
your
on
segues
reports.
are getting better and better.
Come on, that
killer.
was fucking
absolutely
flawless.
Killer.
We had a little. We can't play this video clip because On Air Jordan is by the book. If he's anything, he is by the book. 7 News Australia, which is a big news channel in Western Australia, they put out a report saying like UFC have had to price the tickets down because not even half the arena is full for this weekend's event. Obviously, we do have the seating chart. Andy Hickey, the great Irishman Andy Hickey, did share this out. I believe we have it. Yeah. I checked ticket availability for all UFC events. The reports of poor ticket sales are accurate. Easily the worst selling event at this point post-COVID. Prices are now as low as $167 US Australian dollars. Sorry, that's 93 euros, $110 or 81 pound. He did have an image of the tickets that are there. It is there. Like, this is pretty fucking crazy considering like where they were at in Australia. Like, I had friends living in Perth and they were speaking about when Volk and Islam were there, like the absolute clamor to be a part of this. Again, Western Australia are paying the UFC to come to these places, and they're obviously offering up things that aren't really stimulating the fan base. I will say we've had conversations about this before, and they've priced the tickets down to an extent that the arena looks pretty full come fight night. Like, this is tomorrow. This event is happening. It's headlined by Ulborg v. Reyes. I'm just wondering, lads, will this change? Ben, do you think this will change UFC's strategy in terms of matching these fights because half an arena is very bad by their standards. Where they usually sell out everywhere they go.
Yeah, but at what point does that start to become a factor for you when you're getting paid just to show up? Just to show up and put on a show. And that's the part that the site fees have really changed a lot about the way the UFC structures and plans these events. Why we'll see a stretch of a whole lot of Apex events at sometimes when there just aren't as many people interested in the site fees. And then when we get these fight night events back out on the road at some times of the year. And, we heard it, I think you heard it from one of the TKO executives earlier this week. I like it was presented as if like, TKO executive explains what the thinking is. Yeah, here we go. This one where like it's presented as if he's like, let me let you behind the curtain and explain how it works. But how it works is exactly how you thought it worked. Whoever pays them more money gets the event. And yeah, that is pretty much what I thought you guys were doing. Thank you for clarifying it, Mark Shapiro.
Look how happy he is though to be delivering that. It's just
See, fuck you guys.
It's like, at what point do the two lines on the graph cross, right? Because it's like if you're getting paid so much in site fees just to come, you're getting that money guaranteed. You also were counting on a good live gate once you got there. And maybe the gate is not quite as good as you thought it was. But still, when combined with the site fee money, still ends up being better than if you had taken this card somewhere else or spent the money to put on a better fight card, taken away from a future event to bring bigger fighters on this one. All those kind of factors, like I think they're still at a point where they're looking up going, all right, maybe there's a few empty seats on the broadcast. We would prefer if it weren't that way, but we're still looking at the bottom line first and foremost, and it still looks pretty good. We're still making a ton of money, so we're not that worried about it. One thing I wonder about something like this, where you're in Australia, and somebody asked this question in the mailbag this week, where there's just sort of like, for a fight night, we can't give them one in their own time zone. We can't give them one prime time for
That's a problem.
Because it's not a pay-per-view. It's not like you got to turn around and sell this one back home.
True.
And we've seen it, where you did an event in Shanghai, you did it in the middle of the night. You could do an event in Paris, so you could do it early in the afternoon. Why can't you do the same thing for Perth? And maybe it's just they feel the Australians are used to this. They know how we do. The UFC comes to town, you get up on Sunday morning and you come on down and watch the fights, and that's the way it works. And I'll tell you, it's not a bad way to do it. I went down there and did it as a reporter. It's kind of fun. I enjoyed it. Maybe they get sick of it. I do wonder how it affects something if you're counting on more walk-up ticket sales to help fill in the arena when the tickets aren't really selling, and you're trying to get the word out. Hey, we're bringing down prices. You can still come. You can, like, that works better if you have all Saturday of people sitting around and being like, I don't know, maybe I could go. Maybe I could show up. Like if the prices are coming down, let me see. If they come down $5-10 more bucks, hell with it. Let's buy a couple and let's go down there. Maybe that doesn't work as well if it's Sunday morning 8:00 and like either you made the decision last night or you didn't.
You wouldn't get up and go at 7 a.m. go watch Colby Thickness competing on the prelims over there.
7 a.m. on a Sunday morning. I better have a good goddamn reason. I better know I have plans. I'm not getting up to check the ticket prices and see. Maybe I'll go. Maybe I won't.
Part of it. I mean, everything you're saying is exactly right. Like part of it too is like when they have a card at one of these fight nights and they'll have it at some location. This time Perth, right before a pay-per-view or after a pay-per-view. It's almost you don't want to say they're mailing it in. But obviously the full emphasis is on like the big pay-per-view that's happening the following week, right? Like you're just kind of like everybody's attention, any kind of real publicity is all looking right past your event. And when the local market responds with sort of the same indifference, that's when it becomes glaring. The card itself, like, have you guys looked at the card? I mean, it's it's not. I mean, even if this was right here, if they have, hey, we're going to do one in Connecticut down in Danbury, and this was the card, I would still think twice, about like maybe going to that, even if it was at a reasonable time. It's not the greatest fight card. And I know that sometimes people are like, well, this is more of a regional showcase, but then you're like, okay, so the fight nights have turned into Bellator, like it's just, it's a very strange thing. And sometimes this does come back to bite the UFC. Like you said, they're going to get their money either way, but we were talking about how hot they were for the last few years, just rolling hot dice. They could go into any market coming out of the pandemic, and it was just those letters would sell no matter what. I feel like those days, those days may be coming to an end. I don't know if they can just show up with their letters like the WWE can unless they put enough on a card, right, to kind of compel people to go, especially at the ticket prices where they're at right now.
Yeah, it feels like, we've been talking about this for the last year, I'd say, where the events don't seem to be just moving, like they just don't seem to be stimulating people the way they used to. And this just feels like a perfect example with the Islam fight with Volkanovski. I think the next time they were back in Perth, it was Duplessis v Israel Adesanya, and that was obviously a lot of emotion involved in that fight as well. And now we're here on a fight where like these people don't get a lot of cards. Like this should be something they're interested in, and suddenly they aren't showing up. It kind of
Carlos
feels...
is Carlos Olberg. He's from New Zealand, right? Like, is he a New Zealander? And I mean, I never know. Like, I haven't been to that part of the world. I don't know. Like, we always kind of like, oh, New Zealand and Australia, they love each other, and they, but I don't know if he translates in Perth. Like he's from that part of the world, but I don't know if he's like a hometown hero in Perth. You know what I mean? It's just and he's coming off like he had a moment where he was riding a nice crest where he's knocking guys out, whatever. His last couple of fights, though, when he could distinguish himself as a contender, he's kind of dropped the ball there. They've been kind of boring fights. So it's just kind of a perfect storm, even on your main event that's not that compelling. The most compelling thing might be Dominick Reyes.
Well, that's a very interesting segue, Chuck, because one of the people here actually spoke to Dom Reyes this week. I had the pleasure of reading your piece. Very, very good. The incredible second act of Dominick Reyes, who become MMA's comeback story of the year. Tell us, Chuck. I think you think he has the minerals to pull this one off.
Well, you guys tell me too, because I did this piece because I was looking at it, and I remember I was thinking about Andrei Arlovsky back, I don't know, 14, 15 years ago when he got knocked out like three out of 10. It started off with that Fedor knockout, and then he got knocked out a couple more times. He lost 4 in a row, and we're like, Andrei Arlovsky's done, And not only was he not done, right? Like he's had like 2 other 4-fight losing streaks in his career, and he keeps bouncing back. It's one of those things, though, with Dominick Reyes where he seemed like, I remember just saying, like, man, you, as a guy who doesn't fight, you hate to tell people, like, you probably should retire, man. Somebody should be having that hard conversation with you. And I was thinking that because I saw Dom a couple of times out here in Connecticut. He was training with Teixeira at Teixeira's with Alex and all the guys as he was getting set for a prelim fight at Madison Square Garden, the one that Izzy Adesanya was fighting with Pereira. And he had already lost 3 in a row, and I was thinking, you just see, like, you're watching the juxtaposition between Alex Pereira, whose star is rising, and he's just about to, like, become, like, a big thing in the UFC, and this other guy who the fight game is almost pushed completely out. Like, he's just, it was such a dim, like, one of those moments you're looking at a guy, and you're like, man, he's just about gone. And sure enough, he goes in there and gets knocked out by Ryan Spann. And I think that that's it, right? And then here he is. So it's fairly remarkable to me to kind of think back to that moment, and here he is fighting on a main event after we tear down that card. But it still is a main event against a very good guy, which potentially could be a number one contender position. And for Dominick Reyes to come roaring back is pretty remarkable, man. And the one thing that I wanted to talk to him about, and he was kind of very candid with, was one of the things that kind of dies when his career spirals out of control is the idea that he beat John Jones. Like that he was the one guy who went in there and gave John Jones that crazy fight, and most people thought he won. And I was like, it ages well when you have a turnaround like this. You start knocking guys out, and all of a sudden, if you're back, people are going to remember that fight again, and they're going to talk about it. So there's a little bit of a legacy aspect to this, and I think he's fully aware of it. And he sounded really healthy. Like you wonder sometimes the guys who get knocked out like that, how are they going to sound? He sounded very clear. He's very articulate. He sounded like he was in a good place, and I think that his storyline is pretty compelling.
Yeah, it's also like I think the Spann thing is perfect. Because that was dramatic. Like that was a first round KO as well. And it didn't seem like a rocket of a punch either. I think it was like, I think he just poked him basically and he went down and you're kind of like, oh. And there was that, like, there's nothing worse than seeing a fighter when they're in that kind of, that skid. And it's like it's terrible, like, because all this fucking sport is about is winning. What have you done for me lately? And you see a dude like that who was so close to being among the immortals, beating John Jones, and suddenly, like, there's almost like a smell off them. And there isn't. He smells fantastic. I've been around the guy. Smells beautiful. But I'm just saying, figuratively, Do you know what I'm saying, Ben? Like, it's
yeah,
like,
yeah, I know exactly, especially because you saw him come out of that John Jones fight, right, where he was on a good tear to get the title shot in the first place. A lot of people came out of that being like, we think Dominick Reyes deserved to win that. And then with John Jones absent from the division, we were like, all right, let's go ahead and have ourselves a vacant title fight. But it also felt like the UFC was sort of saying, it'll be a Dominick Reyes coronation. We're going to put him in here against Jan Blachowicz, but we think he's going to win that one, and then it'll kind of right the ship a little bit. And instead, he goes out there and finds out about the legendary Polish power. And, you know, and then loses the next one after that. And that is when you start, it's like watching in baseball, a hitter when he's going up there and he's clearly thinking, just don't strike out, you know, or seeing a wide receiver in football. You kind of got that look a little bit from Marvin Harrison Jr. last night early on, where he was just like thinking like, I got to catch one of these damn things, man. Like, I just like,
so and true,
there's not that confidence of like, I'm going up there in the air, I'm taking that thing down with me, that is mine. It's like, don't screw up. And there's a big difference. And I've talked to fighters about this, where it's like, they know, hey, I got to go in there and get a win here. I need this like to keep my career from just sliding into oblivion. But that's not the mindset that you want to be in to go into a fight, is like, I hope I don't lose. I hope I don't screw this up. Like, you want to go in there thinking like, I'm going to take it to this guy. And it's one of those mindsets that you can't really fake. Like, you can't just pretend and get there. And I think that it is surprising, because a lot of us, Chuck, we're looking at Dominick Reyes the same way. Now he's in this kind of a fight where if he does mess around and win this one, you know, regardless of how many people have butts in the seats to see it by the time it happens, it does make it to where you have to be like, well, he's right there in the contender conversation, especially given what's happening at light heavyweight. Because like we said during the Big Ank Pereira conversation earlier on, it's not like we have a ton of other better ideas right now, man. Like, now is the time to stand up and be counted at light heavyweight, because nobody really is an obvious contender that we absolutely must give a shot to.
You know, one funny thing about that, I was mentioning he's training at Teixeira's, and I was like,
actually, Chuck, I'm going to stop you there.
Okay,
mate. I'm sorry. We have to go, but we have to go to a break. But we will come back, and you can give us this thought. I apologize.
I'm going to hold it.
Hold it right there. Stop breathing. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Back in your life! Finally! We have a lot to talk about.
I didn't care about a big fight or money. I cared about the heavyweight title. That's all I've ever been bothered about.
Join us for the entire first round live on Yahoo Sports.
This is the biggest shock of the draft.
Super Bowl 59 on Radio Row with Jaden Daniels.
Put me on the spot like that.
Here with first-time Olympian Stephen Curry. You and LeBron's relationship has had to evolve.
And see blood on the other side, but still have the utmost respect for who you're playing against.
You know, alerts on your phone. Oh, KD's thinking about leaving. Like, where is this coming from?
Coach Prime, Deion Sanders. They don't put a gold jacket on your back and you don't know what you're doing.
The head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers, Jim Harbaugh.
It's like being around greatness.
How does that feel when you hear that? Shador Sanders, future
you know,
NFL
you're the
quarterback.
first one like I ever hear say that. Like, that's wild. But I'm thankful.
And they're going to be here for a long time.
Now to a fun part of today's program.
Like, I literally went to college with Chris Paul. Like, he's still in the NBA.
He could not hit another home run all year and be a great season.
Yes, correct. I got to make an admission first, Pereira.
Oh, God.
I grew up a Boston Red Sox fan.
I knew that.
I used to hate you.
I've gotten to a point where I can smell you guys.
And I think winning with the Buccaneers put him at a completely different level. He has the greatest resume of any quarterback in football history.
They have a chance to get to the Eastern Conference Finals and win it. The realist in me says that ain't happening at all.
I don't want to treat you like a regular journalist, because I feel like me and you have a good relationship.
I would put Travis Hunter in that same category as those two players. The difference between he and Romodunze, Travis Hunter is just a special athlete.
I actually think this is a smart decision by them. This is what we're going to bring in. This is who we are. This is the style that we're doing.
And it was a long, beautiful conversation.
What a fun interview, Dave.
Hey, thanks, Coach.
Are you not like all talked out after talking to people for so long?
This is my life.
Okay.
I could do this for 8 hours.
Got it.
Wow.
Welcome back, everybody. You know, the ads, they pay the bills. Volkswagens, Bentleys, they all have to be bought. Chuck, accept my apology.
No, it's okay, man. That's my fault.
It's Frank's fault. We've decided, actually.
Yes.
We all had a
We
conversation
argued.
as we went. It's actually Mysterious Frank's fault. Please, Chuck, go ahead, sir. Finish your point about Reyes.
I was pointing out that because Reyes was training at Teixeira's, in a crazy way. Let's say he goes in there and wins this fight, and then you get a guy. And next week Pereira wins his fight. Would they fight each other? I'm like, it's one of those things because they've developed a pretty good rapport, and I would say that some of what he's been able to turn around comes from that gym. Just kind of being around those guys a little bit. And he said he would fight him. He'd prefer not to, but it was interesting because I wasn't sure. I'm like, this is a guy who never got his chance to really do it, to win the belt and all this stuff. And he was, you could tell that was going to be a hard scenario for him. But that is something to keep in mind, that he may have to go against a guy that he really likes and would rather not fight if that were to happen.
Did you get a sense when you talked to Dominick Reyes whether or not he is aware that when you go to his Wikipedia page, Wikipedia right at the top is like, did you mean to search for Dominick Reyes, the British sleight of hand magician?
No, I wish I would have asked him that.
It does. And it's very surprising too, because then when you actually do go to that page because it's like for the magician, see Dominick Reyes without the K at the end, and
weird.
It tells you that he is noted for creating the routine ninja coins, where a Chinese style coin magically transforms into any coin that it touches. And see, me and my buddy Chad Dundas were having this conversation on the Co-Main Event podcast earlier this week. And the next thing you know, you start looking up all the categories of magicians, from sleight of hand to mechanical to spiritualists.
Yes.
And you just realize, like, man, this is what Wikipedia gives you. Is you start out being like, I want to go over there and find out. I forget which college. Thank you for pulling this up.
Amazing stuff on it.
You start out being like, where did Dominick Reyes play free safety or whatever it was in college ball?
Yeah.
And then the next thing you know, you're going like, so there are like mechanical magicians, there are like, stand-up magicians. There's way more different categories than I thought.
Perhaps the greatest trick that Dominick Reyes has ever performed is that, have you ever seen either one of those guys in the same room together? Wow. Huh? I'm just asking. Wow. Blowing your mind right now.
I do want to note that it's his Wikipedia page, the magician, says that his clients, which I think is an interesting choice of terms, have included Queen Elizabeth II, Sony, Volvo, BMW, and the British Board of Film Classification and the Royal Navy. And I'm like,
wow.
By clients, do you mean he performed the ninja coins trick for him one time?
That is what that means.
I feel like that's what you mean.
I hope I never fucking heard of this other guy. I mean, we're quite close to the UK, I swear I would have fucking heard about his magic trick or whatnot.
Yeah, I thought you had your finger on the pulse of the UK magic scene.
I know. I mean, I'm a constant letdown. All right, come here. Before we jump off this.
I screwed up, though, by not asking Dominick Reyes about this. My God. Sorry. Next time I talk to him.
Oscar Losev is saying he's a UK icon. And
Oscar messing with us? Is he messing with us?
He could be
Oscar,
no, I'm joking. No idea.
Sleight of hand.
He's taking the piss. He's taking the piss is what he's
taking
doing.
the piss.
What a bollocks that was.
I knew it.
Tell me this. Are you both picking Reyes here? And just before you give me your answer, know that I have picked Ulberg in the Parlay Pals. So that nearly guarantees that he will, in fact, not Ulberg, that Dominick Reyes will, in fact, win this fight.
I'm picking Ulberg.
Yeah. I think Ulberg wins a... the saddest thing is we'll probably see him return to his power. Like explosive in this fight. And Ulberg will... I think Ulberg wins.
Yeah. Well, hope so, because I'm on a 2-fight skid. I have been picking last, which is horrific, They just lump me into the shit slot every time. I don't mind being that guy, you know what I mean? Like a gunner in World War II, just in the most.
Yeah.
We can tell how you don't mind. We can tell it's coming through really clear.
Not fucking mind at all. But I will say, I need some advice for this NFL game, lads. But the situation, I need to explain it to you. Half of Pittsburgh is here. This guy, Dan Rooney, who owns the Pittsburgh Steelers, apparently very Irish. Nobody told me. He's running around, going to all these different parts of Ireland. Aaron Rodgers is up there talking about, I'm actually Irish. I just can't wait for my pints of Guinness. Unfortunately, the guy who got us our tickets, Connor Ryder, he is the partner of one of Elaine's best friends, Hannah. We're all going together. It's going to be fantastic. He was like, let's go and support the Vikings. When this all kicked off, when nobody was talking about how Irish the Steelers were, Elaine gets me a Vikings jersey for my birthday. she's like, go and get me a Vikings hat for this thing. We're all going to support the Vikings. I was like, okay, this is great. As the week is going on, I'm like, this is becoming dodgy. You know, the Steelers have pretty much bought Irish loyalty here. And we're like, okay, we're Vikings people. Connor, the guy who suggested we would support the Vikings, texted me this morning and said, couldn't get any Viking stuff. I'm just going to wear a Saints jersey. So now it's me, just me and Elaine, it seems, in Ireland, going to support the Vikings. As you know, in UK and Ireland, there's this stuff called hooligans. They go around and beat the shit out of each other if they don't like the same team. I'm just asking you, these Pittsburgh people who are coming over on the jet planes to watch this game, am I going to have to get handsy on the north side of Dublin and fight for my team's honor, even though I wouldn't particularly class myself as a Vikings fan then?
You know, I'm interested in the decision to be like, I'll just wear a jersey from a completely different team.
That's what they do, though, in those European games. A lot of times they show that they pan the crowd and they're all wearing different jerseys, had nothing to do with the game.
Yeah.
I mean, especially because the experience that I have had going to soccer matches in different European countries has led me to believe, don't mess around with that stuff. You better either be in the visiting fans section, or you better be wearing either something neutral and not supporting any soccer team or home team gear. They seem to take that pretty seriously. And so I guess I thought that would have carried over into how they're approaching NFL fandom, rather than just being like, here is a jersey to show that I am familiar with the game of football. You know, not
That's
necessarily
pretty much
either
what
one of
we're
these
doing.
two teams, but just to let you know.
Yes.
That I've heard of it before and have maybe even seen a game and have some opinions, even though they have nothing to do with this particular matchup. Like, that's an interesting choice.
They are obnoxious, Pete. They are obnoxious, man. I went to an AFC Championship game in Denver in 2005. It was still the Jake Plummer era, and it was against Pittsburgh. And there must have been 25,000 of those terrible towels just waving around and stuff, and they were just so obnoxious. Of course, Pittsburgh won that game, so you had to hear them on all the way out and all this stuff. So I think really you'll only really hear about it, you know, if Pittsburgh wins. On your way out, that's when you're going to have a problem, is all those guys rubbing it in your face.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't think that will upset me too much because I don't really care at all. But like, I feel like if I win, if my beautiful Vikings win, and I have a Justin Jefferson jersey, and he's a fantastic player.
I was wondering which player you chose.
Well, Lane chose it. I'm like a bigger Aaron Jones guy, if I'm going to be particularly honest. I love his shit. Fantastic.
Yeah.
He's injured. But if he fucking scores a touchdown and they win this game, I am going to be the biggest prick in Dublin for that whole day.
Are you going to do the gritty or whatever? Like, I'm
going to do whatever the fuck it is that they don't want me to do.
Okay.
Until someone fights me, I will make an absolute prick of myself.
What you really need is one of those like Viking helmet things they had that has the long blonde braids coming down out of it. Like, that's the kind of shit you really need.
Well, I'll look out. I'm going to send you guys a picture of me at this game.
Please do.
Also, Americans seem to be shocked by the level of intoxications an Irish person will reach at a game. Not speaking of any.
That'd be interesting to see. The NFL games, like especially the night games, have been. I don't know if you've been to any of these, but like a Sunday or Monday night type game. It gets pretty drunk, man. It's a pretty drunk crowd.
I can remember leaving the toilet during one of the American football the college game, and I was with my friend Steve, who's a huge fucking bodybuilder guy, in fairness, so you can understand to some degree. But we're like shouting at each other about what we're doing after this, while pissing, obviously, you know, in this urinal. And I can remember turning around, we washed our hands, and as we're walking out, like there's just an American dude like holding his kids as if like something terrible. And I was like, no, sorry. Whoa, what the fuck? So I'm looking forward to, my goal for Sunday is to not make anyone make that face, you know? Hopefully Elaine being there will be like, you know, stop having fun. You know
what? That's on them, Petesy. Don't dim your shine just because it blinds other people's sensitive eyes. I say, let Petesy be Petesy out there in those streets. Don't tone it down for anybody. They're the ones, they're bringing their stuff over to you guys. They need to see how you guys do it. You don't need to try to fit into their mold.
I like how you're most excited to see Aaron Rodgers, but yeah, you're going to wear the opposing team's jersey. This should be fun.
Well, I mean, he's just so controversial, isn't he, the guy? Yeah. I mean, he's just and he throws a beautiful ball, you know?
He does.
I watched that Netflix documentary and I laughed throughout the whole thing. I've never seen a man more self-involved in my life. And I think it's class that, like, if you can throw a football like that it's okay. Do you know what, mate? Do whatever the fuck you want because tight spiral, baby. That's all we care about. But I'm very excited, I have to say. I'm having a great day. Everyone's planning like, oh, where will we go after? And like, I'm gonna have to go straight to bed. I'm gonna have to be put down after this game. That's what's gonna happen. But do we have any super chats, Jordan?
Oh
What?
man.
She remembers.
A bit awkward.
No,
they don't have any.
Yes.
Oh, that's
so
great,
perfect. Man. The week he remembers. There are no
Thanks
super
for remembering,
chats. Oh,
Oh,
couldn't have worked out any better. Huh?
That's great.
Never fucking calling for super chats ever again after this moment. But fantastic. We did remember. Ben, Chuck, all crackheads. PFL Europe is happening right now. If you're interested, by the way, Cage Warriors from Ireland happening tomorrow. And of course, we have that Perth card that nobody wants to pay for. So you guys have a fantastic week watching those fights. I'll try and not come in black and blue from getting beat up by Pittsburgh fans on Monday. And have a lovely weekend. Love you very much. Mwah.
Back in your line.